Okay, so what's going on? So it's quite obvious that the Australian Labor Party, Liberal Party are no better, are very much involved in the great replacement theory of the Australian citizen. Now, many of you might ask, oh, this is a conspiracy theory. Oh, this is the World Economic Forum. What we need to do is look at Dan Andrews in Melbourne with the smart cities, the 15-minute cities. I think it's now spread to other cities around Australia as well, Perth and Adelaide. What is happening is the left-leaning governments realise that the promises that they've made are unsustainable, and they cannot rely on the native voters, basically the Australian citizens, to vote for them anymore. So what they can do, they can either be honest and tell us that they've been lying to us, misleading us and deceiving us for many years. And we know this because there's $1 trillion debt. Australia should not have debt. There's no reason why Australia should have debt when we have basically under our soil the richest minerals, oils. We have everything, right? But the problem is that what the left-leaning governments have been looking to do is to divert money launder, into pet projects, into these, things like green, whatever you want to call it, climate change and things like this. It goes off to people affiliated with the left-leaning parties onto consultancy, and there's billions spent, billions and billions spent. But we're being taxed into homelessness, and prices of everything is going up, which should not be the case here. Manufacturing, we're not manufacturing cars anymore. We're not making any grandiose projects to increase manufacturing, which is criminal in my opinion. There is no reason why we should not be exporting cars to Southeast Asia, for example. But what's happening is that because these left-leaning governments know they can no longer rely on Australians to vote for them, they're going to have to import the new voters. Now, these new voters are coming to this country, and they were supposed to come under the skilled migrant visa, but I think that as soon as that was announced, I was living in Japan, I knew that, I knew what was going to happen. We might see a few, but we're not going to, but it's going to be everybody's going to take advantage of this. And how do they do it? So families of migrant families who have come to Australia, okay, let's say they come from Quasi-land. I just made that up, it's pretty cool. Now, the people from Quasi-land, Quasans, will never employ Australians. They'll never employ people from another country, okay? Quasans will only employ Quasans. Now, Quasans will normally either come on university, to go to university in Australia, apply for skilled visas, and they'll end up working in Quasan-owned businesses. And they'll be working way more hours than they're legally allowed to, but Quasans are known to do this. And what they'll do is they'll offer, the Quasan business owner will offer the Quasans who are coming on these migrant visas jobs for $10 an hour under the table, but free accommodation. So Quasans will line up for this, thinking, well, we're going to eventually get to become Australian citizens and jump on and do our own thing. We can do this as well in a few years' time. This is what's happening in Australia. And it's kind of atrocious. Now, I've always been a big believer that if you want to migrate to a country, you have to value add. So for example, in Thailand, if you want to start a business in Thailand, you must employ a minimum of 4 Thais, okay? And you can't own land there because you're not a Thai. I think these rules are great. Sure, you can rent land from Thais, you can rent a property, that's a problem, but you can never own the land. Here in Australia, why do we give land away to foreigners? Why do we allow them to purchase property? We shouldn't allow this. You should be an Australian citizen. Now, our government for many years has basically been relying on property inflation, property asset value inflation, in order to prop up what looks like a good economy. That's just how it's been, because they haven't really been doing anything but preparing for what's coming next, which is the authoritarian bureaucratic state. The fastest growth sector is the public service. Okay, and we're going to be in this position very soon where there'll be so many migrants in this country that they're already doing this. They'll form their own racial enclaves where we won't really be, it's not like we won't be allowed in there, but in some areas we can't go now. But we're not going to be very welcome. They won't be speaking English or our language or anything. They'll be like, what are they doing here? You know, that's how it'll be. But then they will also, these migrants will also start voting their own people in to the political power. We already noticed this. And like some of them recently have been talking about Palestine. You're a councillor, Ahmed. You should be talking about the issues in your area. Not Palestine. But they can't stop because they're not of the same ideology, the same culture, the same customs as us. It's very different for them. They have an ideological fixation on something, and that is their objective. It is not for the benefit of Australian civil society. It will be for the benefit of their ideological fixation, and for their creed, and for their tribe, and their people, okay? And then we're going to be forced out. Because unfortunately, the radical left-wing lunatic governments don't have the strength, the stamina, the conviction, or the principle to stand up for Australia. They are in it for their own political longevity. The problem is they just don't understand what will be coming next. They're not very intelligent. Anthony Albanese doesn't make his own decisions, of course not. But what will be happening is they'll be voted out, and these new people will be voted in, and they won't give a rat's ass about the nation, because this is not their purpose. Is to make Australia great, to improve Australia. It is to create an environment where their tribe can prosper, not Australians, not every Australian. Indigenous Australians, they won't, it doesn't matter to them. They will try to convert you to their ideology, but then once they've got the power, you just have to look around the world what happens. Anyway, I'm trying to leave this country, I think, because I realise that the political leadership just hates us, can't stand us. How dare we critique them? They're now forcing, hate speech laws. George Orwell's 1984 was not an instruction manual, Labor Party of Australia. It was a warning.